Deborah, with her 30 years of being an entrepreneur and creating over 7 companies, knows exactly what it means to accept the mission. When you make that decision, when you accept the mission to become a solopreneur, to take yourself and your talents to market, then you embrace a life of not only unlimited possibilities, but also the unknown. It's an elixir of fear and bravery that only someone who's taken the leap really understands. On our show, Deb digs deep with her guests to highlight what you, the listener, wants to know. The stories, the whys, and the hows to navigate the journey to success. Get ready to hear from some of the most incredible mission takers from Generation Z to Boomers. So sit up, perk up, and get ready to be blown away. Now here is your host, Deborah Drummond.
Hey, welcome back to Mission Accepted. What have you guys been doing? What kind of missions have you been up to? I want to hear about them. You need to send them in, or PMS or DMS, or gosh knows, by the time you hear this, there might be another something with to do with an M, and you need to let us know what you guys are up to. So if this is the first time you've landed on our podcast, well, welcome. You're in for a real treat today. If you don't understand what Mission Accepted is, well, let me tell you, it took a little while to come up with that name because we wanted to define exactly what we wanted to do on this show. And what we want to do on this show is we want to kind of shine the light on what it's like to be an entrepreneur or an ultrapreneur. And if you don't know what that means, you will. And creatives, like, look, there's so many incredible creatives that are actually entrepreneurs, but people don't see them that way. They see them as a photographer, they see them as a artist, or they see them as a sculptor. But let me tell you, they go through the same ups and valleys that an entrepreneur does. And then self-funding media, like my dear colleagues of podcast hosts and radio hosts and TV network hosts and all the new world of streaming, we can all be on TV now. So look I know that some of you tune in because these stories are friggin' hilarious. They're, what an entrepreneur goes through when they decide to take on the mission. And not only are we hearing from people that have been entrepreneurs for a long time, but we are tapping in and having interviews with that incredible Gen Z generation, the ones that are, look at what 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 25-year-olds, these popping up with these businesses everywhere, all over on media. It's a different world, people. So anyways, today I'm very excited because a lot of times I get to interview people for the first time and we become friends. Well, this is the opposite. I have a very good friend of mine, Dale Roth from Roth and Ramberg, and he is one of the most creative people I know. We're so fortunate he's here today because he just landed from New York with yet another entrepreneur story. And here's how you know someone is seasoned in the game when they go to do a shoot in New York and they're like, yeah, I lost my luggage, right? And you're like, and you're talking as if it's an everyday occurrence, because when you're an entrepreneur, you don't know what the day will unfold. You don't know what you need to navigate. You don't know what you need to kind of shake off and continue on. So Dale, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So look, the last time that we hung out, which wasn't too long ago, was the launch of your book, which I want you to share about. But let's get a little inside a bit to you, who you are, and what made you decide to take on the mission. Like, what's Clicking Pictures all about for you?
Well, I think 20-year-old Dale was wondering what he was going to do with his life, and do you want to be a doctor, or a lawyer, or an engineer? And that was the careers in your head anyway, or a fireman or whatever. And it never occurred to me to be an artist or anything creative. A, because I really wasn't, and B, it's like just never thought of it. And so I thought, well, you know what, maybe I'll just be a lawyer. And then I realized it was 6 years of school and really not fun. So I'm like, well, what kind of job is fun? And I'm like, well, taking photos sounds fun. So I went to photo school in Western Canada and met my business partner there. And fortunately, I managed to be relatively good at it. So it all turned out well, but it was sort of a fluky sort of thing.
I love that. I love this. You know what? The coolest thing about finding out how people have decided to, turn their own key is how that happens. I mean, some people got their back against the wall, some people, they're getting really influenced by their community or by that, the culture that they're in, or, the family that they're in, to go in one direction or the not. And I know, we're in the same kind of age category. And there wasn't a lot of options. It wasn't like when you went to, like, I don't know, was there even a career course you could take? Like, you know, these kids have now, like, career courses. And I mean, if there was three things for me, it was stewardess, teacher, and I think secretary or something. Those were like, that was the standard choices. But you just kind of stumbled onto yours and found your gift that way. That's super cool.
Yeah. And, you know, at first I thought, well, I'll take weddings and portraits. And then you see an ad, you know, and I'm like, well, somebody's taking photos of that. So that's how I fell in love with advertising. Because, I mean, just seeing these images and typography, and, you know, when you look around my place, I have signs and different typography. Like somehow I can memorize jingles from the 1970s, like advertising. Like I just watched TV and soaked it all in, and it somehow went in my brain and made me creative. Thank God.
So you met 28 years ago, the partner that you still have today.
Correct. Yeah, we went to, well, actually longer, because we went to photography school together, and we both, after school, we found job as assistants, which basically is working for people like myself, mentoring, getting paid. And that's almost a better education than school was. We're just working for actual people who are in the business, and they know, you know, you learn how to invoice, and you know how to deal with customers, and you know all those things that really have nothing to do with photography, but have lots to do with being an entrepreneur. Like, you have to clean the toilets, and you have to paint the walls, and you have to do all these things. So I worked for a couple of photographers in Edmonton and in Western Canada, and Michelle was working with other photographers, and then she got a job with the government as a photo coordinator. And it was the time when the fellow by the name of Ralph Klein became premier, and he basically gutted the government. So, you know, this is 30 years ago. She got $10,000 to quit her job, and she's like, I'll take your money. You know, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money now, never mind then. So at the time, I was living in the basement of her and her husband's rental place. And I went into work one day and I said, listen, I'll split my wage in half with Michelle, and we'll bring her into the studio, and we'll make this big super studio. And the people I was working for said, great, that's an awesome idea. And then the next day they're like, it's going to cost a lot of money, and why don't you do it yourself? And I'm like, why don't I do it myself? Like, that's why I went to school, and I paid for school myself, and like, I'm going to give it a shot, because I'm going to give it a shot, as I spent a lot of money doing this of my own money, and I'm going to try. So I remember, you know, Friday night was beer and pizza night. So I came home Friday and said, hey guys, I think we should start our own business. And Michelle was like, okay. And then that was it. So that was our business plan. And, you know, the people at the bank sort of like, what's your business plan? I'm like, we don't have one.
That's such an awesome story. I wish all of our lives could be that easy in certain areas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a
thank
podcast.
God we're good at it, because it would have been a mess. But I mean, the other side of it is like, we busted our ass, right? You know, it's like, work hard. We paid ourselves like $400 a month, and it was just enough for groceries. And, you know, for like 3 years, we starved just like students, right? And that's what you got to do.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So that whole, I mean, wow. I mean, I guess we could just be really, you know, classic and say starving artist, but you talk about being mentored, like right in the studio. I did the same thing when I was teaching massage and I had the clinic. You know, there was this woman that came to me and she's like, I want to work for you. And I'm like, I don't have any spots available. Like, I've hired everybody. And she's like, I really want to work for you. And I was sitting and I was looking at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, she would just be perfect. I'm like, I don't have a spot for you, but I'm like, okay, so what's your experience? And she's like, well, I don't have any. I go, you've never massaged before? She's like, no.
Oh, hard can it be?
I'm like, and I'm, you know, my gut's saying hire her. She ended up and still is one of the most incredible healers, and she was amazing. And so I'm like, okay, so would you be willing to learn? And she's like, yep. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had to teach this woman, like, okay, this is what an arm is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, she had some brain health background, but she'd never massaged anyone. So that was not common, but more common. Now they have, like, you can join a networking group and get a mentor for an hour or two, but does that still exist at all in your field or your industry?
Gosh, no. And you know, thinking back, so when I got out of school, I worked for these two photographers, and they were, you know, big deals in Edmonton at the time. And I did exactly the same thing. I said, listen, I'll work for you for nothing, just so I could, until I become valuable. And, after 2 months, they felt guilty and they started paying me. I got to work. The money was running out, but that's what you got to do. So yeah, there doesn't seem to be that enthusiasm with the younger kids these days, but like it'd be hard to be a photographer now. Like there's a lot of expenses, and like, how do you start? And boy, because I have freelance assistants, and I was a full-time assistant there, but I was full-time because that was back in the day when I had to develop film and I had to do prints. And so you can't do both, right? So be a photographer and do that. So that was my step in. Now it'd be hard, I think. It would be hard.
Well, it's interesting. I think about that. And I took photography in school, and I remember spending time in the darkroom, and it was just super cool, right? And it was just such a creative outlet. Obviously, it wasn't my path. But I don't know if it's so different. I mean, this whole idea of understudying, it's obviously, it's more popular in Europe, and probably, I don't know what it's like there now, but it was very understudying, and it was a lot of respect for the master that was teaching you. And I mean, I did it in Ayurveda. Like, I can't tell you how many courses I took in Ayurveda, and it cost me like $30,000 to fly my teacher here and study under her for a month and all that kind of stuff. There was a healthy respect. I think things are so much more accessible now. But I don't know. I think that sense of appreciation of someone knowing more than you could be brought to the forefront. But I think it's really important for us to remind people. Like I always say, well, I won't lie, but I try to say when I'm speaking or teaching, like if you're in business and you're 20, go say thank you to someone who's 30. And if you're 30, go say thank you to someone who's 40. If you're 40, go say someone to thank you who's 50 and 60, because they broke ground. Like we did stuff, I mean, I remember like it was a big deal to go buy a chocolate bar. I mean, when you're, because there wasn't schools and there wasn't loans for things like that. And there was no BDC, and there was not a formal women's organization or networking group. When I started, we all met at my place at Sunday at 2, bring your kids if you had them, and everyone threw $2 and that fed everybody. Like there just wasn't resources. So you had to be resourceful. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think we need to, anyway, we're going off on a tangent.
Well, I think what you could do, like if you're a photography assistant, you could freelance, and you could work for 5 or 6 different photographers if you're smart. And I work for 2, and I just picked the best parts of what they did and incorporated it into me. So you could work with 6 different photographers. Everybody does something great. Everybody does something not so great. So just take their great stuff and you're just way better off. Right.
Yeah. So tell us, 28 years, that's a long time to be in business, right? And obviously ups and downs and what have you. What made you stay?
I love it. I just love taking photos, and I love every day's different. So even if, today I was photographing a lawyer, which I've done a lot of corporate photos, and it's a lawyer like every other lawyer, but he's a different lawyer. He's a different guy, and he's got a different story. And it's just, every day is, no day is the same. And that's, that suits my artistic brain. So it challenges me. And, as like things fall apart along the way, and cameras break, and you lose luggage, and you just deal with stuff, right? You just deal with it. And even though it's stressful, you're like, I dealt with that. So I get a thrill out of taking photos.
Right. So it's the love and it's the passion for the actual work itself that keeps you going through the times that go up and go down.
Yeah.
So I know that the world kind of took a little recent hiatus, and so when you come up against things like that, when stuff's really not working out, or like as a creative, what do you do? Like, what did you do? Like, is it that time where you kind of relax into it? Is it that time where you go build a business plan? Is it time where you?
Well, during pandemic, there was no work because we photographed people. So we were sitting around for a few months doing nothing. So I decided to teach myself video. So I just hopped online, watched YouTube. Thank God for YouTube, people. and just learned how to use my camera and use how to shoot video, and bought some gear and practice. And I'm not there yet, but I'm close. It's not second nature. So as soon as it's second nature, then I'll feel comfortable going, I can shoot your video. I think I need a day and then a day to go back just in case I don't get everything. But and anytime over the years when it's slow, then you do something creative. You come up with an idea, but you also put a spin on it. You contact somebody from an ad agency that you do work with, and you said, we're working on some self-promotion posters. Do you have any ideas? So they said, good, we're going to do this whole series of posters, 3 series called We Shoot. So we shoot business, and we shoot fashion, and we shoot whatever. So one of the shots is Michelle and I in an old truck with somebody strapped to the hood. It's like we shoot business. So a businessman with a suit is strapped on the hood like a deer, and we're driving down the road. And other shots, we shoot fashion. We're sitting in the couch, and there's plaques on the wall with these models' heads through there, like they're like lions or deer or whatever. So just fun. You win awards. People notice. So that's like,
talk about that. So what are some of the highlights? It could be awards or a magical moment for you.
Awards are fun for sure. People go, what's the weirdest thing that you ever shot? And I'm like, well, I photographed this guy who lived in rural Alberta, Canada, and he had a pet buffalo. It was for People magazine. And so it was back in the day. So People magazine phoned and said, because it was like the beginning of email, and said, there's this guy and he's got a pet buffalo. Can you go photograph him? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd go photograph him. So I go out to his farm, and his buffalo's named Bailey the buffalo. And I can't remember what his name was. Let's call him Mike. So okay. Mike said, do you want me to bring him in the house? I'm like, yes, I do, Mike. I want to bring him in the house. So we take this buffalo through the door. Like they're tall, but they're skinny. So they fit through the door. And he goes, listen, if he lifts his tail up, it means he has to go to the bathroom. So just walk behind him, push his tail down, and we'll take him outside. Right. So in my head, I'm like, no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So we go in, and he brings him through the kitchen and into the living room. And I'm against the window, the living room window with my camera and a little light, and Mike's sitting on the couch, and the buffalo's behind the couch, right? So I'm taking photo. And Bailey starts flipping out. So he jumps sideways over the couch. He just went, and I'm like, I don't know, buffalo could do that, right? And I'm holding on to my camera, like, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. So that's fine. So then we took some more photos. Bailey lifts his tail up, goes to the bathroom, number 2, all over Mike's carpet. I'm like, Mike, you should get some hardwood. He goes, I'm just renting this place. I'm like, oh my God. So
oh my gosh.
So finally, Bailey lays down in the living room, and Mike leans on him, and they both watch TV. And I'm like, I send the photos to People magazine. You're like, you're the buffalo photographer of the world. I'm like, well, so it was funny. And since we've been back a couple times to see him, and he's got a car, a 72 Oldsmobile that he chainsawed the roof off, and he's got a plastic bin taped on the hood with some grain in it, and he goes driving around town with Bailey, and he thinks he's going to get rich having a pet buffalo, but it's not like a pet grizzly where you can get in the movies. There's a little small need for a pet buffalo. But anyway, that's kind of the funniest thing. I'm like, oh my God.
His dream hasn't happened yet.
Dream hasn't happened yet. God bless him. He's still trying.
Yeah. And hey, he's got a best friend. He's doing better than maybe us some days.
So if you Google Bailey the buffalo, or I think somewhere deep in our Vimeo is video of another shoot we did where Bailey was it was like a Christmas thing, and oh my God, it's so funny.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Okay, so look, let's the last time I saw you, I was mentioning that I went to your book launch.
Right.
And so incredible. And one of the artists came in at the end and was able to sign, his pictures. Tell me about these books, because I've seen both. They're incredible. I mean, the photography obviously is distinct. I mean, it's just really there. But what gave you the idea for books?
Well, I have a crazy Aunt Phoebe, and she is a woodworker, and we were talking with her. I think it was around the time where it was slow. So it's like, well, let's do something creative. So I was talking with Phoebe, and she, she's 60 something, and she sounds like she smokes cigarettes too much. She's like, oh, I got this great idea. Like, I know this woodworker, and we can do these. And she's super excited. And she's just one of those people that can make people do stuff, right? Just by being excited. So I'm like, oh, I get excited. Yeah, let's take some photos of your woodworking friends. We thought, maybe it'll be an article in a WestJet magazine, or maybe we can get somebody to publish it, right? So she contacted her friend Pirio, who's a writer, and we met for lunch. And Pirio was like, why don't we do a book? I'm like, well, why don't we? So thank God she led the way, because that's not my thing, like applying for grants or whatever. So Pirio got the money, and I pulled in a designer. So basically we shot 4 or 5 woodworkers and had it all laid out just how the book would look. And we gave it to a publisher, and they're like, we love it. Go shoot 15 more people. So that's how it started. And I pulled favors in to get the designer. I said, hey, do you want to do a design? Do you want to do a book for free? And she's like, yeah, sure. And you help each other out. So we ended up shooting, I think, about 20 woodworkers on the West Coast along the Salish Sea, which is like Vancouver Island and Vancouver, and some of the smaller islands. Tons of fun, great people. And the book did really well. So they're like, let's do another one. So now the second book is Metalworkers. So Out of the Fire. The first one was called Out of the Woods, Woodworkers Along the Salish Sea. And this one is Out of the Fire, Metalworkers Along the Salish Sea. And there's talk of a next book called Out of the Earth, which would be ceramic and glass artists. So
wow,
it's kind of fun.
Wow. So what? So I mean, that's a whole kind of a whole other. It's still creative. It's like that entrepreneur that I talk about. I mean, the entrepreneur is, oh, there's video, oh, there's books, oh, there's this project, right? I know that you love to travel, so that must have been really cool.
Yes.
I mean, just to be able to talk to those people and have those experiences and listen to their stories, right? And to shine light on someone who may never have ever thought of themselves being in a book. And I mean, I know because I publish books, and you talk to people and you're like, I'd love to have you in your book, and they're like, oh no, not me. Did you experience anyone that's like, oh, like, me in a book? Why?
I mean, the mandate wasn't not the most famous people. It's like, it could just be somebody who does, in the case of woodworkers, somebody who does guitars, like a luthier. And it was funny because, you show up and they think it's going to be quick, and you're taking 3 or 4 hours, and you're taking a bunch of photos. And then when they see the book, it's like, it's an impressive book. It's thick and it's printed nicely. And like, they're just like, wow, I'm in this book. And that was a big part of it, to go, we're shining light on these people that have never had a light shone on them. And that's fun. It's it just makes you feel good to go, hey, I'm helping that person out, hopefully selling their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been blessed a couple of times to have you shoot me for, my work and pictures that I've needed for advertising and website and PR and that kind of thing, and multiple different, outfits. I'm sure I brought, you're like, oh, look at this one. She brought in lots of outfits. And it's interesting, right? When you're being photographed, it's an interesting conversation that's going on for you, I think, or for me anyways. It's an interesting, you're like, okay. And there's nerves that you have to walk through. And there's this idea that people are going to see these pictures, and what does that look like? And it takes a while to get comfortable. I mean, people always think that, you're just naturally comfortable, but
yeah, I think big part of the job is just getting people to relax, especially in a short window of time, because a lot of times we only have an hour or 2 hours, and you gotta feel them out. And I don't know, is that psychiatry or psychology or some psych word, that you got to just make them relaxed. And I usually, sometimes we talk to the students, I said, the best way to get somebody relaxed is be slightly dumber than the person you're photographing, which is easy for me. So it's just, because everybody's got something to say, right? So a mechanic can tell me about car engines. I don't know anything about that. A carver can tell me about bowls. I know nothing about that. So everybody knows something.
Well, that's absolutely one of the things that I enjoyed the most, is being able to you have, and I think that's what makes a good people person. is being able to make people feel really comfortable. Because like you said, it's a short window. Like, it's one thing. I mean, and you can see it. You can see it in the picture when someone is like, smile, and when someone's more relaxed, and you get more of an authentic, and obviously you're masters at that. Both you guys are masters at that. So 28 years, photography, books, and you were just explaining to me something that I needed help defining. So fine art photography. And when you said it, I was like, I think I'm supposed to know what that is, but what's fine art photography?
Fine art photography is just as it sounds. So instead of a painting, you would buy a photo. So there are people like Ed Bertinsky in Canada is well known, and he did a series on kind of industrial sites, but just the beauty of them, millions of tires in this beautiful landscape, right? So it's the hook, it's the idea that's interesting. And it's like, that's smart, man, that's smart. And he's selling giant prints for thousands of dollars. And a friend of mine, David Ellingson, I was on a panel with him recently, and he's a fine art photographer. And I'm just sort of keeping an eye on him because he used to do what I do. And now he's strictly doing fine art, and he's doing beautiful sort of, what's the word? Very earth friendly and climate and ocean and trees and he sticks to his guns where if he's making a print, he's not going to print it on plastic because it's not environmentally friendly. I'm like, good for you. Like, he could make a ton of money by putting it on some acrylic, but he's not doing it. So that's great. He's like, same as NFTs, even though I don't know much about it, he's like, it uses too much energy, and I don't want to be a part of that. So I'm keeping an eye on him. And I think because we've done a book with a writer, we would at least have a shot of doing just a photo book. So my idea is to find a really good astronaut suit, which is, $10,000 out of the US, and just take it to places that we go, and like Times Square in New York, or Tofino with a surfboard, or Mexico, in a village, wherever, it doesn't matter, or in a bowling alley. And I think that'd be really cool, and make giant prints and hopefully sell them. So that would be kind of fun. Yeah.
No, that would be very cool. Sorry for interrupting. And I'm like, okay, so if anyone listening happens to have an astronaut, hey, look at, we're in Hollywood North. I know where you live, dude. So we're in Hollywood North, and so there might be an astronaut outfit left over from some shoot, or Notting Hill. In Notting Hill, there's a scene of Julia Roberts. She's in right? Okay. Yeah. She's in an astronaut suit. Someone's got one somewhere that they could donate, and then you could give them, a nice, the first print, or maybe the 100th, whatever you want. But
and I might end up just buying it myself and going, well, let's just use it for the shoot and then auction it off at the end. Just like who doesn't want an astronaut suit? It's a hell of a Halloween costume, like, you'd have to wear it for 20 years, but still it'd be,
Yeah. Well, you could actually, there you go. You could take a picture of an astronaut in a pumpkin patch.
Exactly.
Kind of like
the sky's the limit.
Yeah, sky's the limit. We could be here all day.
Literally. Yeah, good point.
We could be here all day. So travel. You love to travel. And that's what I think the beautiful thing about when you think about being an entrepreneur, and let's talk a little bit about, the freedoms that come from entrepreneurship. Or a lot of people are doing entrepreneurship side gig, 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week, 1 hour a day. You and I both have the crazy blessing of doing it more. Right. You just have to drink more. That's all, people. There's no trick to this. But you can travel. And with some people do and some don't, but people talk about a lot of that now, and wasn't really talked about, when I thought about being an entrepreneur, at 27, I never thought, I'd love to be able to do my business on my phone one day, because there wasn't any. There wasn't, and so you just didn't really think about the extent of the freedoms. But I just know that travel for you is a big deal, and being able to put it together with work. So tell us about that a little bit.
Gosh, some of the fun jobs are going to places, remote places that nobody gets to go to, and it's beautiful, and you've got models, and you've got a crew, and it's just so much fun just creating photography in these exotic locations, like exotic hotels, or we've done a lot of work for Travel Alberta, so in the Rocky Mountains and in Banff and Jasper, and it's I don't know. It's the fun part of the job. It's all fun, but that's a really fun part of the job. Going to all those places that most people don't get to see, and it's not the touristy place. It's the behind the scene place, or it's the off the beaten track place. And you get special priority because you're a photographer, so you get to go right to the front of the line and do whatever you want. So that kind of stuff is awesome.
I think you've got me almost sold. I think I'm going to be giving up my world as a, front in line, shooting pictures, traveling.
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Maybe we should be contacting Tourism Ireland and tourism. I actually just got the number today for the relationship between Canada and Ireland, the Chamber of Commerce. And maybe we should go put a grant there, and you can come to Ireland and you can shoot this whole beautiful walk across Ireland, because they've got a tourism, and between Ireland and they should put some money together. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you just got to put it in their face and go, hey, what do you think about this idea? Why not? Because at least, it's easy when you have a background, and I have a website and I have books. So it's like, I'm legit, right? Which is early in the conversation. I mean, still people go like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, photographer. They're like, oh, do you do that full time? I'm like, yeah, I do that full time. Like, it's just like not a real job, right? And I'm like, well, here's my card. And then they're like, oh. So
you should change. You should just say, just from June to September on the weekends. Wow. So no, really, I mean, the way you're describing it has been pretty incredible. I mean, and here's the thing. You've made it that way, right? I mean, it's that optimism of the entrepreneur.
I remember we were shooting some work for CN Rail, and we were in Chicago, and it was for the annual report. So we had to do photos of a locomotive in different spots in North America: Vancouver, Toronto, New Orleans, Chicago, with the city in the background. So we found this place in Chicago, and the person we were dealing with from CN said, well, they're decommissioning that line, so you can't take that photo there. And it's like, well, that's the best photo. So we went there the next day and sat on a bridge and waited for trains, because there was no cell phone, nothing. And we got this beautiful shot. They never used it, but the fellow who was designing the annual report came and visited and saw how hard we were working, and we established a relationship with him because of that. It's like, well, this is the best shot, so let's get the best shot and see what they say. And it's like, if they use it, great, and if they don't, well, we tried, right?
Wow. So just take off the table what I do, take off the table what you do, some of that brass tacks entrepreneurial. What's some advice that you would give someone's looking at being not just maybe, because we know at the crux, like you said, you have to learn how to paint walls. You got to learn how to clean toilets. You got to learn how to balance a checkbook. I don't know if sometimes entrepreneurs, they rise and fall and still haven't figured that one out yet. You can hire some people too, but I don't know. What's your advice?
I think you got to find something you love, but also good at. Like, I mean, you maybe you can become a photographer, but if you don't have any skill at it, just stop it. Just go to something else. So find what you love, because you have a passion for it, and see if it works. But if you don't have people skills, don't be an entrepreneur that involves talking to people, so define what you are, understand what you are, and then go from there. And then just work hard, just work hard and be honest. I think if we screwed up a photo ever, we're like, you don't have to pay. That's our fault. We'll redo it again. And your name is who you are. Your name is who you are. Right. So your reputation is who you are. So honest, hardworking, fun. We try to be fun. It's got to be a pleasant experience. If you can go to a road trip with us, it's a lot of fun. That's the idea, right? That's what we wanted to create. So I guess know what you want to create and create it, but be yourself, and know your limitations. I think is the biggest thing. And it's never easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Mm-hmm. True, right? True. Those are really good. Those are really good words. And I like that when you do some self-examination, right? Like just really, and if you still have the passion for it, then what's it going to take for you to get there? You know, kind of like what you're doing with video right now, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, you can work for somebody if you're nice enough, especially if you're a student. Like it's easy to go, hey, I'm a student. Can I come hang out with you? Absolutely. Like I'll take any student at any time because somebody took me, right? So you give back, right? So you find those people and go, who doesn't want somebody to work with them for free? Like, sure. I mean, and if I can pay them, I'd pay them. But
yeah. Oh, you're definitely coming to Ireland now. So
I'll do it for the drink.
I know you'd be fun. You guys would be like such a blast, right?
Yeah.
There'd
be a few Irish whiskeys, I think.
There would. I just have a feeling that there would. I'm thinking day 5 or day 6, probably not. I think those, you know, it's going to be, the toughest is going to be in the middle. I think the toughest is going to be in the middle, you know, day 5, day 6, by day 7, it's like, whose ridiculous idea was this? And the pictures that you would get would probably be a little stoic. Let's just say.
Might have to point the camera in the other direction.
You're just like, okay, do I have to smile again? All right. Look, let's talk about how people can get in touch with you. And honestly, let's talk a little bit about these books and where people can get these books and hang out with you, see what you do, how your services. I mean, it's so interesting because you do so many different things, right? So we talked about this fine art, and you obviously travel and work with tourism, and you shoot lawyers for corporate, and, you know, you did photo shoots for me for my website and my photography and my PR pieces. And I mean, that's what makes you so great. And you know, the brewery in Alberta. Yeah. So
I own 2 shares of a brewery in Alberta, which has done really well. So it's, you know, but it was the same thing. It's people who know what they're doing, good at what they're doing, and they should be successful. So I put my money there because these are people who have figured it out. So that's easy.
I got a weird question to ask you, and I don't know why it's popping into my head. Do you read? Like, is there anyone that inspires you with the power of the word, or that you listen to? Like, who inspires you? Look, you're really inspirational, and you are a creative bucket. So a lot of times creatives, you know, they inspire themselves because they've had 40 ideas before their first coffee. But is there anyone that makes impression on you?
It's probably more photographers, more of the visual stuff.
Right.
You know, I remember, like, I don't have my work up because it's not good enough. You know, like I figure if I have my picture on the wall, then that's the best I can do. So I don't put any photos of mine own because I think I can do better. And when I stop thinking like that, then that's the best I can do. I can't remember what the quote is, but if it's I don't know who the author was, but it's a photographer who said, if it's not a good photograph, you're not close enough. And I thought, you know what, that's good advice. Like you got to get in there, man. And you got to, you know, meet that person. And there's a famous, my favorite photo is from Dorothea Lange. And it's, she was a woman during the Depression who worked for the Farm Security Administration. So what that was is they sent photographers out to photograph the Depression, and it's a famous photo called Migrant Mother, and it's a super close photo of a mother, and she's got a child here and a baby here and another one here, and they're filthy dirty, and you can just look at it and go, that's the Depression. That is 1940 whatever. That's the Depression, right?
Wow.
So in the film days, she would have used a roll film. So there was 12 photos. And so you take 12 photos and you put it on a contact sheet, it's called. So it's one sheet with the 12 small photos on it. So you can see in the beginning, she's far away, and it's just like these people in a tent, and then it's here, and then it's here, and then it's here. And the very last shot is the shot. And so she got close, and it's like, wow, that's just, it's a beautiful, and I got to see it in MoMA in New York, in the museum, like an actual print of it. And I'm like, oh my God, just so cool.
It is so cool. It is so cool. Well, my friend, is there anything else you'd like to share before? Really, honestly, I just want people to kind of get to know you more. And where can they get to know you more? But Is there anything else you want to share? Something up and coming or?
Let's see. What do I have upcoming? Well, I'm going to photograph the cover of the Metalworker book. I'm going to go back and photograph and video him. So I'm going to go make a video of him probably next week. So I contacted him. His name's Jake, and he's well known throughout the blacksmithing world. And so I'm going to play. And I think I have it in my head, and I know my gear, and I know the sound, and I know the lighting, and I'm getting good at editing. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be really good, and I think it'll do me good down the road.
Wow, awesome.
So that's fun.
Okay, well, tell us where we can get the books, because and I got to tell you, when I say they're incredible books, and look at, I put books together, so I know a good book. I mean, I swear our family is very book based. I thought I was going to go broke with the amount of books that my daughter went and bought at Chapters at that time when she was younger, but it is a solid piece of art. Like the book itself is art, like the way it's compiled, the shape of the book. And I know because we put books together, it's a special shape. The binding is considerable. The paper is right. Like it's the book that you buy to give someone special as a gift. Like this one's under the tree. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's beautifully designed by a woman named Laura Minja from Lime Design in Victoria, and she did an awesome job. And so it's just to explain, it's portraits of the woodworkers and the metalworkers in their studio, and a piece of their work on a black background, just like a gallery show. And then it's just shots of their shop and their tools and little snippets. So it's just and it's almost like a little magazine articles, and well written. So it's not a big long read. Everybody's got 2 or 3 pages, and it just shows their personality, I think. Gosh, what was the question, Deborah?
Well, you know what? I thought of another one. The last question I want to ask before we send people where to go get your thing is, you've been in business relationship for 28 years.
Yes.
That's no easy feat. I remember when I had my first business partnership, and it was like full business partnership, and it kind of went awry. And that's when I went and got the book, Michael Gerber, The E-Myth, that talks about partners and just the rarity of the success. And he uses Ben and Jerry as an example of what they did to be able to make it a success. So how have you and Michelle been able to stay in business for 28 years?
Well, I think initially when we started, we were both too scared to do it ourselves, is how it began. And the male-female combo has worked wonderfully, because people respond differently to different people. So when we go into a shoot, we talk to the person we're photographing, and somebody might talk to me more or might talk to her more. So whoever they relate to, that person takes the lead, and the other person sort of pulls back and assists and helps out. So it's, and her strength is my weakness, and vice versa. Like I'm scatterbrained and helter-skelter and all over the place, and she's meticulous and organized. And so it works well. It works well, because I don't know if I'd want to do it myself. I mean, it's just nice to have that person to bounce stuff off, and it's worked well.
So your communication style has worked, and it just sounds like one of those rarities where it's just works. It's just the energy is there, the respect is there, the dance is there, right?
Well, we both work hard, and we both have the same goals, right? So I think that's important. It's like, we just want to get great photography, and it's not about the money. It is about the money, but it's not about the money. When it starts being about the money, then it's time to quit. Like if you love it, forget it. We're still there,
That's awesome.
I don't know if she wants to do astronaut shoots with me, but we'll see.
I have a feeling that she could probably be twisted, especially if you go to Ireland.
Yeah.
So standing on the cliffs of Moher in an astronaut suit.
Killer, I'm telling you, killer shot.
Killer shot.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to see if we can get
book-wise, you can get it on Amazon, I'm sure, or you can get Roth and Ramberg. We can each ship you a book. It's Heritage House Publishing. If you're in Vancouver, it's on the ferries. It's fine books.
So rothandramberg.com. It's going to be in the show notes, but ROTHAND.
Yep. RAMBEERG.
All right. Okay. .com. And then of course the name of the books, in case someone wants to go to Amazon.
Out of the fire, Woodworkers along the Salish Sea, and out of the let me start over. Out of the woods, Woodworkers along the Salish Sea. Out of the fire, Metalworkers along the Salish Sea.
Okay. And if people want to talk to you about photography, they can go to your website.
Absolutely. Send me an email, follow us on Instagram, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah.
All that stuff.
Contact me at blah, blah, blah
Yeah.
on Sunday between 2 and 4, because I'm that good.
There you go.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I know that you just landed, and
Thank you.
you're such a cool guy, and I am grateful to be your friend. Thanks for coming onto the show. And I'm sure it won't be the last time, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon. And with that, people, if you are inspired and you want to come onto the show, well, you know how to reach us. You know how to reach us. If you think that you've got something to share, we'd love to hear it. And you can just contact us. Just go through the podcast and you can reach us and we'll reach back. And so thank you so much, Dale, for being on. And
Thank you.
guys,
Thank you so
you are
much.
the best audience. You know you're the best audience because you share and you ask questions and you let me know what's going on. So you guys are the best audience ever. With that, we will see you next week.